How do you want to change crypto events?
I think the sort of thing that we need to really understand as a marketer's point of view, business development, potentially brand folks, like, yeah, I get, there's a very specific need for some of these trade shows, events that go on. But as a marketer, I think our job is to increase the pie, right? Get more people who wouldn't go to a crypto event to come to a crypto event, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even know it's a crypto event. They think it's something that's interesting to them to show up to, right? And I've been in the space for quite a while now. And I think the thing that we as an industry need to mature beyond is creating these events for ourselves, right?
Yes.
Where
yes.
you go and it's like
yeah.
the same 6 people you saw at the last 6 events, or the same 6 people you see at the next 6 events.
Yeah.
That's, as a marketer, I think that's kind of a failure to some degree. At least if it's that 6 times, right? So my next strategy and the way we're thinking more broadly is how do we kind of break out of that bubble and just throw really good events, right?
Yeah.
That can bring people value to understand something new.
Hi, my name is Lawrence Linker. I'm an investor, builder, and executive in the digital assets ecosystem. When I first joined the industry 5 years ago, I had a lot to learn, and I found that I learned best by just having casual conversations with people actively working. I've had the pleasure of meeting some extraordinarily talented folks in that time, and the Coinversations podcast is my invitation to you to join me in these conversations so that we can both continue learning. Of course, nothing said by me or any of my guests is financial advice, and you must do your own research before making any investment decisions. Today, I'll be speaking with Matthew Osofisan. Matthew is the head of global product marketing at OKX, previously lead marketing for Crypto.com exchange, and is a marketing leader with 15 plus years of experience. Matthew, how are you today?
Lawrence, great to have you. Great to see you here, buddy.
Great to have you, man. Today is a special pleasure. Pretty much everybody I interview is a personal friend, but I would say, it's fair to say at this point that you and I go way back. Would you? It's been a while. We both know each other from a previous life, so to speak.
We go back like a Cadillac, man. No question.
Yeah, I love it.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's also very interesting to me how I feel like so many of the people that I know that I met in previous lives and made a memory of being like, oh, that person seems like very sharp, very smart, very hungry, very on it. A lot of those people seem to find their way to crypto. Do you find that true for you as well?
I think to some degree it's definitely true, but I think it's also where we are. We met years back in Singapore. I was actually living in Malaysia at the time. I found my way to Singapore in a journey to get deeper into the crypto space. And a lot of the folks I meet there who have that curiosity tend to find more like-minded people, and those people end up working on really interesting projects in technology, and that technology tends to be blockchain based.
Yeah.
So I feel kind of blessed to have that, I guess, filter applied to my life, where as a technology enthusiast, technologist, and a marketer, being in Asia, and specifically in Singapore, I tend to run into really smart people, and they tend to be working on blockchain-based applications and the crypto space. So it's been a fun journey, and I continue on that journey, excitedly, because it continues to be super fun.
Yeah, I totally feel you. And I noticed also for me, there's this stereotype among comedians that they say comedians tend to only want to hang out with other comedians, and I feel like it's kind of true with crypto people as well. You kind of get to a point where you sort of just want to hang out with other crypto people, as terrible as that sounds.
To some degree, right? Yeah, you know what I mean? Because the crypto, I'm on the, I guess we call it the circuit. I travel quite a bit, and one of the things I like about crypto culture, or the culture that has formed around this technology, is it's very sort of nomadic, and you meet a lot of people with different backgrounds, going from different places, living in different places. And so in this sort of operating in the global economy, specifically in crypto, you tend to find people who are really fun to be around, really interesting stories. And so that makes it more interesting to be around those people.
Yeah.
And the cool part about it is, in the end, you find people in crypto and in this space are trying to change something. So they have some level of counterculture or a view or a vision of the future that is kind of inspiring or was inspired by something original. So that inspiration, I think, also drives a lot of the cohesion of the ecosystem.
Love
People
it.
you meet, people you come together with. So yeah, I love hanging out with crypto people until we just talk about crypto all the time, and then I don't like hanging out with crypto people.
Sure. Yeah. And then you need a break at some point,
I
right?
need,
Yeah.
we could talk about basketball. We could talk about reading. I don't know, man, something else. But
Yeah.
but no question, the crypto community has a special bond between themselves.
Yeah, very cool, man. Well, look, for those that don't know you, why don't you introduce yourself before we go into your crypto journey? Just tell us a little bit about Matthew the man.
Sure. Matthew the man. I think I'm originally from Boston. Grew up in the States, and made my way over to Asia. Just coming on 10 years now, which time flies. I honestly can't believe it's like 10 years almost in Asia. But my journey really started when I got into, two parts where it started. Post-graduating in my undergrad, I went to Northeastern in Boston. Post-grad, I came out in the financial crisis, or just at the tail end of the global financial crisis, 2008, and really wasn't much happening. The tech scene was pretty good. We were getting into, social was big. Game tech hasn't really started yet, but I started gravitating towards crypto around 2012, 2013, when I read the Bitcoin white paper. And was pretty much like, what is this technology? And that only compounded when I traveled to West Africa for the first time. I'm half Nigerian, so I went to West Africa for the first time in 2013, and just seeing how dynamic the rest of the world was and breaking that bubble of my American view, that helped me to start thinking about a larger global world, and that technology around blockchain always was in the back of my mind. And so that kind of kicked off my journey. Throughout this whole time, I've been in startups, working in tech, always within the marketing realm, and gravitating more and more towards product marketing and storytelling. And it all culminated in 2016 when I moved to Southeast Asia, moved to Malaysia and then Singapore, really because I wanted to get closer to where the action was when it came to crypto. And so since that time, you mentioned I had spent some time at crypto.com, leading the marketing, product marketing for the exchange. And now been at OKX the past 2.5 years, building out the global product marketing function and really supporting the global storytelling and telling that global story of OKX and what we are building and bringing to the world around crypto innovation and blockchain infrastructure and tech. But for me as a person, I just love new stuff. I love traveling. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an inventor. I was always building, playing with stuff. And so the world to me is just this place to explore. And the big piece around being in Asia and being in an industry like crypto and the tech that's behind it, it's always changing. It's probably the most dynamic tech field. We have AI that's really, really cool now. Some of the pharma tech is pretty cool. But crypto and blockchain, I still think, everyone says we're early. We are early to certain parts of it, but we've seen a lot of the story start to unfold. And I've just been really happy to be part of that story so far. So that's a bit about me, man.
Yeah, I feel it. I love it, man. And let me ask you, something I've always wondered, what is product marketing?
It's a good question. I spend half my time telling people what is product marketing. So I consider us storytellers, right? Product marketing is that bridge between the product team. So typically, and product marketing teams can sit on both product or marketing depending on the org. But ultimately, the responsibility of a product marketer is to turn these sort of technical or product heavy features and technical elements into real benefits and a narrative and a story that somebody who ends up using the product can understand. Sometimes you think about things as value propositions or benefit statements or whatever it is, right? There are different frameworks you can use. So an example would be, why do you use a crypto wallet, right? Well, crypto wallets have MPC technology and they have, custody and not self-custody, and you have seed phrase and all this stuff. But that's just the tech. That's just what it is. It's why do you use it? It's like, well, I want to have my own power. I want to be empowered to own my own assets. I want to be able to explore an on-chain world, right? We need to tell that story, and product marketers take the tech and turn it into a narrative and a story and a reason for somebody to use a product. So that's what I challenge people on. I'm always in rooms with product managers asking why. Why are we building this? Who cares, right? I'm the guy in the room where people don't want me to walk in. I can tell when I walk into rooms, people are like, "Oh, Matthew's here."
This guy.
It's like, you're gonna ruin my day, because I'm like, really, I get it. I talk to a product manager and they say, here are the 5 things this thing does. And I'm like, why should we care, right? And if you can articulate why we care, I'll work with you on it. But if it's not strong, then no one's going to use it, right? So let's go back to the drawing board. Let's think about why this should exist. Yeah, ultimately, that's really, a good product marketer can tell a story in a simple way for something that's complicated. And this tech is pretty hard to understand at times.
Yeah, man, it certainly is. And I got to tell you, I feel like you've got your work cut out for you because, yeah, this tech isn't always very easy to understand, and the story behind it is hard to really understand sometimes. And if anything, I really feel like, we work in an industry that really comes from, it's like rooted in these like highly technical, type of like super right brain people.
You got some nerds, you know what I mean?
Just
And it's fun.
hyper nerds, right? And
I love
then
it.
as we try to, like to communicate to a wider audience, it is challenging to try to help people understand like why you need this, why you want this,
Totally. Yeah. It's one of the things that I think I can't even say that I'm fantastically good at yet. I continue to try to improve.
Well, you're the global head of product marketing at a very, very large exchange, man. So I don't.
I'm not bad at it. I didn't say I was bad at it. Jeez. If I was bad at it, I think you would have known by now. I say that I'm really goddamn good at it, but I mean it in the sense that it's hard. You have to improve. You have to constantly try to improve your craft.
Yeah.
And I think being able to listen and see what's happening in the industry and challenge yourself and identify when you did a good job or a bad job. Because marketing can actually be very easy in the sense where you just talk, right? You can talk about anything, put out a message about anything. And a lot of times it's really, really easy in this space to just tell people what the thing is. It's a trading infrastructure product that allows you to have, better, faster connection through API. Okay, cool. Like I get that's what it is. Who cares? Why does it matter, right? And that's where I there's frameworks around value proposition development. I've trained myself on. I'm part of the Product Marketing Alliance, which is a community of product marketers. I constantly check and I'm always watching what's happening on Twitter, and I take a good eye at who's doing a good job at product marketing or storytelling. And I look and I'm like, oh, that person's really good. Then I try to hire them first, right? I'm like, oh, I got to hire you because you got the right idea. But constantly learning. And what I found, and I've gotten to the point which is, there's this general base of trying to come up with that value proposition, a simple line, a simple reason why this thing should exist, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a layer of content and storytelling, which you layer on top of that, which is then how do you see it, right? I have a saying within our team, which is show, not tell, right?
Yeah.
You can always tell people something, show them, right? And showing them is actually more like a tactile feel, like you can see it, you can touch it, kind of, right? Okay, now I understand, because you have to see the tech a lot of the times to really get it. And then there's this piece on top of it, which is, how do you talk about it, right? And that piece around talking about it, crypto has a problem with sort of brand and some of the recognition around or the understanding around what it is. And so that's why I say I'm still working on it, because we're still trying to get to a point where it's really easy for us to talk about crypto and not just crypto, but this new asset class and a technology that should be as simple to use as your cell phone. And in reality, there's a lot of times it is. It's just there's this learning curve and some apprehension around getting people into the space. One thing I will say for OKX, and something I've really been proud of our team and our direction when we go in, we're heading in and have continued to go in, or continuing to go in, is trying to make everything on chain as accessible as possible, right? To make our product as accessible as possible. Not only for just usability and really taking a lot of feedback and updating the product very, very frequently, but also ensuring that we have the right safeguards in place, that we have the things that matter to people. Because in reality, if you're putting assets or you're putting your money into an asset, you want it to be very safe and understand it, right? And crypto, with all the noise around it, it makes it hard to trust. So we've done things like introduce monthly proof of reserves on OKX, right? And we publish proof of reserves to show that assets are backed one-to-one, that your assets are always going to be backed one-to-one, meaning that every dollar you put into OKX, we have that dollar to back it, right? And those are things that we just need to get really right and probably just repeat over and over again as the market matures, right? And then on top of that, the tech works, right? When you go in, we make sure that the tech works. It's simple, it's easy to use. I work really closely with our product design team to work on things like copy and onboarding to new features, just because I know you just want to click through. That's, again, show, not tell. I don't want to read a whole thing on how to use it. Should be right in front of you. So as I say, I'm getting better at this. It's constantly trying to know the goal, make it as simple to use as something as your cell phone, as Google, whatever you use every day, and have that trust that this space is something to be part of. So yeah, work to be done, but that's my job, man. It's fun. It's not that bad.
Sounds exciting. Matt, I want to dig into this more with you, but for now, we just need to take a second to hear from our sponsor, Cast. The future of spending crypto is here. Meet the Cast Solana physical card, your gateway to seamless instant spending. Use your crypto instantly, no spend limits, and instant ATM withdrawals. Tap with Google Pay, Apple Pay, and shop at over 140 million merchants globally. Supercharge your rewards. Shop luxury, fly first class, or even buy a supercar with Cast. No limits, no restrictions. The physical Solana card is here. Secure yours today for just $100. Scan the QR code now and step into the future of crypto banking with Cast. And we're back with Matthew. So, Matthew, I don't know if you know this about me. So I was actually a marketing major as an undergrad. And there was a time in my life where I really thought I was going to go into marketing. I've always been fascinated.
Well, you're making a podcast, bro. I might say you might have incepted yourself.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I've always been fascinated by marketing, but I've been happy to be an observer. And I'll tell you one of the reasons. And I realize it's probably there's a learned skill to it, but one of the things I figured out about myself, I'm going to be kind of vulnerable here for a second.
Give it to me.
Yeah, I'm going to share it with you and share it with everybody. So I have a tendency towards being a little verbose, and I suck at copywriting, and I think some people have this talent for just being like really punchy with their communication. Whereas my style, I tend to be a little bit more, it's just different, And so I just felt like, marketing probably wasn't going to be like the best, where I had the most competitive advantage in my career. But I've always been fascinated by it. It seems to me, having managed marketing teams in crypto before, that marketing in crypto is really like a different beast than in almost any other type of industry. Would you say that's accurate, or?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think so. To your first point, I encourage you. I mean, you're clearly a pretty good marketer, my friend.
You reckon?
I've seen you on LinkedIn. Man.
Oh, wow.
You're out here slanging. That copy's not that right. That copy's not that wrong. Not that wrong, bro. Good.
Okay.
So you picked something up over the years, no question.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, man. Yeah.
So yeah, it rubbed off on you. But no, I find the same way. Like the way my mind works and the way I think is quite fast cycled, and that comes out in the way I speak, and I work on that as well. But I recognize, the saying is like, I wish I could write you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it takes a lot of actual brain power and training and understanding to be concise and be able to articulate your ideas in a very concise manner that is compelling and effective. And I've always tried to be better at that, but it's not my specialty either, which is why I hire great copywriters, and finding a great copywriter, that's a superpower. I actually think, some people have it innately as a
100% agree.
talent,
Yeah.
but you can learn it. And I've learned a lot of the right structures, frameworks of copywriting, and I know how to do it as a practice. Am I a great copywriter? I would say no. Am I okay? Am I good? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good. I can spot something. I can check something. But I'll hire a great copywriter and learn from them. And I think you mentioned, and bridging to the point around crypto, it is a very different type of marketing. And I probably have to figure out how to articulate this myself in a really clear way. But if you think about, say, Web 2 marketing or traditional marketing, those principles still apply, right? You're communicating, right? So copy is incredibly important, right? And that's the hardest part, is because it is so complex and complicated at times, finding and be able to write clear, concise, compelling copy that has an emotional appeal and a hook and a benefit and gets people to take action on a technology that's complex is quite hard. And so I think those basics still apply, which is why I've hired copywriters on my team, which is why I've hired a studio team to be able to develop, really compelling visual content for us, because I think visual content can help tell that story even better. Those are the pieces I think have been missing from crypto, because you kind of never had to do it. Like it was like, initially there was always been this tech first, nerdy sort of culture, explorer culture, those really early adopters who would go through 25 hoops to be able to get to a point of exploration, right? Yep. And so you didn't really need great copy. People would do it. But now as we think about how do we transition the space into the more mainstream, we need to start to apply those marketing fundamentals and principles really well. And I think that's what we're trying to instill at OKX from a product marketing function and discipline. The next piece around crypto, we can talk about crypto marketing as a bubble crypto marketing. It's 24/7. It's constant noise. Half of what happens on crypto is on Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. It's all chatter and noise. And so you have to be in the trenches. You have to be kind of a degen to really understand how to even talk crypto. And you have to balance that with being able to talk and create something that's appealing to general users, right? Right. So the crypto marketing piece is actually quite challenging. You have fundamentals that you need to build, and you also need to be on the forefront of the market and the constantly understand what's happening. And that's a challenge. And I would say the last bit is, of course, incentives, right? Crypto as it stands today is really incentive driven, right? People are speculating on assets. We look at the meme coin cycle that we've gone through or going through, right? These waves, these trends. Yeah, I hope not gone through. My bad.
I think gone through. I think gone through was the right. I think you had it right the first time.
Yeah. Knock on something. Yeah. Now, where we're heading, it always has to be on trend. So as a marketer, the trend in the life cycle of trends is like super paced compared to other industries. Yeah. So you really need to be on trend, or you might just miss it, right? Especially if you're running a project yourself, you're on one chain, you're on a specific discipline like DeFi or GameFi or something along those lines. Like if you don't catch that trend and you're not in it, you're missing it, right? Yeah. And that could be your 8 months, 10 months full burn on your raise by never even getting a shot. And I think marketers need to be the ones to help businesses and others in this space understand that dynamic. Yeah. And as a marketer, you need to understand that as well.
Yeah. Wow. And talk to me about your channel strategy. You've spoken a lot about sort of communications, messaging, but what is, where does the rubber meet the road for you in terms of, talking to your audience about the various products of OKX?
Yeah, I think, if we talk about so channel, we have, I'll talk about distribution, I guess, right? Okay. And we have what we call our own organic channels on our socials, which would be OKX. And we have multiple brands. We have our OKX wallet account. We have our institutional account. So we have these sub brands as part of overall OKX master brand. And each of those have their own personality, their own communication style, right? Their own content strategy. So we put those through, our social channels, LinkedIn, and we also heavily rely on email as a channel to do storytelling. The way we approach email is not these long emails or these things about every single product we come out with. We really try to use email as a way to enter your inbox and tell you something that's important, whether it's happening in the market or happening on the product, right? But when it comes to this space, the element that I heavily am focused on and kind of value the most is this level of advocacy, working with folks who have influence, those people who are leaders of the culture leaders within each space, whether it's chain specific, whether ecosystem, and those would be, those who've created their own community, people who, are KOLs, right, for lack of a better word, influencers, who are educators or trendsetters, tastemakers, and really working with them and trying to understand the type of content that they would like to see from us, and then also working to co-create content and campaigns with those folks. And so that's leveraging, some level of organic community growth through, working with these influencers. Yeah. And that's a big piece of this market, right? Like, I fundamentally do also believe that, if you are listening and you are bringing value to the market, right? We're building products that are really useful. I mean, for instance, our wallet, which I think is fantastic. as we introduce it and we could tell that story better to some of the people who are trendsetters, they get it and they're like, oh, this is really awesome. I wasn't aware. And naturally, if they start to use it, they're going to advocate for that product. And so building that advocacy layer is probably the biggest sort of distribution strategy that we're building and have continued to support and build at OKX. Yeah, and that's the other one. Oh, of course, events, man. Crypto events. We got to change those, by the way. But crypto events.
How do you want
right?
to change? How do you want to change crypto events?
I think the sort of thing that we need to really understand as a marketer's point of view, business development, potentially brand folks, like, yeah, I get, there's a very specific need for some of these trade shows, events that go on. But as a marketer, I think our job is to increase the pie, right? Get more people who wouldn't go to a crypto event to come to a crypto event, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even know it's a crypto event. They think it's something that's interesting to them to show up to, right? And I've been in the space for quite a while now. And I think the thing that we, as an industry, need to mature beyond is creating these events for ourselves, right?
Yes.
Where
yes.
you go and it's like
yeah.
the same 6 people you saw at the last 6 events, or the same 6 people you see at the next 6 events.
Yeah.
That's, as a marketer, I think that's kind of a failure to some degree. At least if it's that 6 times, right? But so my next strategy and the way we're thinking more broadly is how do we kind of break out of that bubble and just throw really good events, right?
Yeah.
That can bring people value to understand something new, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm starting to work on and figure out. And built on top of that advocacy layer of working with really cool trendsetters, tastemakers, believers in this space. How do we get more people to join, right? And that's a big piece that we got to figure out.
So, obviously, look, I'm biased here, but what do you think about the importance of education as a marketing and outreach tool in crypto?
Yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation before, right? I mean, we've talked about this.
I think so. Yeah, but let's let's do it again. Yeah.
No, I think education for education's sake is not the approach, right? You need to have a reason for someone to want to educate themselves, right? And I think a lot of times, and this is where I think you did a great job with XT and trying to create something that's quite approachable, is fundamentally there is a learning curve for anybody learning a new technology, new skill, new hobby. You want to try to make that as accessible and easy to understand as possible. And I think there's a principle around education and learning, which is like, how do you get people to understand something, product marketing, bro? How do you get people to understand something that's complex quite easily and then ramp them up to, more advanced levels? And so I do think fundamentally education is a huge piece of it. The way we approach, we do a lot of general education on crypto. Like we have our OKX Learn. We do tons of events, meetups where we talk about, what's happening in the market. We invite speakers. We do a lot of that. But I think the biggest piece of education that we can do in this space is just educating folks around the fundamental, like, baseline use of this technology, kind of what it is.
Yeah.
And trying to do that is kind of hard, right? Because it's a bit complex. There is a piece of reading I would suggest the listeners to check out if you are into this space or exploring it. It's an article. It's not even an article. I'll call it an article by Christian Catalini, who was the professor at MIT. I was lucky enough to be under him and learn from him a bit. And there's an article called "The Simple Economics of Blockchain," and I recommend this to everybody. And it's like 6 pages, super concise, and talks about why this technology as a whole can be transformative, right? And to me, the element around education is getting people to see a future state that is better than the current state, and then having the will to be like, I'll take the steps to get there. I'll understand it. But I'm curious to you as well, like, when you're approaching this, thinking about education, we've talked about this, but I'm curious, that's my philosophy. How you do it, yeah, we're still trying to figure out, even on our side, the right way and the best way to effectively drive crypto education. But we do spend a lot of our resources to do so.
Yeah, I think you said you're curious. You're curious to me as well. Did you have a question for me?
Yeah, I mean, like, what's your take, like, when it comes to crypto education, right? Like,
yeah,
I know it's important, but like, what's the approach or the philosophy that kind of guides you?
Yeah, so great question. So Matthew, I personally think, and I got to approach this with a degree of humility, because I spent a lot of time basically trying to convince a lot of people in the industry that that we were really doing it wrong. And as you know, I had very limited success with this, and particularly, I think during bull market times, corporates tend to be more willing to hear this story, and then during bear market times, I think there's this perception of like, no, like, let's forget about onboarding new users. We just want to try to retain the ones that we have,
totally.
or like, basically, if you look at the set of like, kind of active, like crypto customers in the world, it's not a super big group, right? There's a wider circle of people who like kind of own some crypto but maybe don't do much with it. There's a smaller circle of people who maybe like do a few trades a month kind of thing. And then, there's a really small circle of people who are really active on DeFi and stuff like that. But
exactly.
We kind of need to like grow like each of the sort of outer limits of each of those circles. And what I've found, and I've done a few like just for fun, like presentations. Like if I joined, like when I joined a co-working space in Bali, I said, hey, I'll do a presentation on crypto, for people who are curious, like, why crypto kind of thing. And, literally, I'm convinced that in this 1 hour, I onboarded 10 new people into the crypto ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure. I can bet. I'll take that bet.
Yeah. And everyone afterwards was following up with me. What exchange should I use? What wallet should I use? Blah, blah, blah. And what I realized is that there is a tremendous audience of people who are like super down, but they just really need to have their hand held.
Yep.
They need someone to like guide them in. And, for whatever reason, from what I see, the industry just doesn't seem to get that, and they just don't seem to care.
Well, it's hard to scale. You're talking about cost.
Yeah.
Scale. It's hard to scale, right? And there's a cost. I know the cost, and I know what it is. And you're 100% right. Like when you get into a room, and they can see you, not only the knowledge that you're sharing, but also the passion and like you as a person. It becomes quite compelling to be like, oh, I kind of want to understand this more.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, and we have some stuff, but I'm hoping that the advent of AI and some of the assistant out there can really start to scale, like lower that learning curve overall.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen. But the second piece, the part that stood out to me in what you just said was, I don't know, there's numbers around there like, north of 100 million wallets in the world, or whatever you want to call the number. But without a doubt, there's a very small subset of active users.
Yeah.
Check DeFi Llama, you'll get an idea of how many active users there are.
Yeah.
Right.
And everyone's fighting for these few customers, right?
Well, it's about flow, right? Like,
yeah.
It's liquidity. Like, no matter what we talk about, if we're talking crypto or a market, like it's about flow and liquidity and where is the liquidity lying. And you look at DeFi Llama and you see the TVL, total value locked in different chains, you can immediately understand the value that's imbued in that chain. And if you want to transact on it, you're not going to go to a chain that has, $50 million in TVL and you're trying to trade.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that everybody is fighting for this small group instead of like growing the pie, right?
That's exactly
like,
right.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying, man. That's the philosophy. I think as a marketer, that's your job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the first job is to fight. Sure, get a competitive position in the market.
Yes.
And drive towards that, right? So you always have to increase your market share. So that's clear. And I think for OKX, we've found a very competitive position in the market, and we continue to do that. The next frontier, without a doubt, is growing the amount of participants in this market, right? And amount of users, and really people who can use the tech, right?
Yeah.
And get value from it and explore. And so there are use cases, and I think this goes back to like understanding, the simple economics of blockchain and the use cases that can be applied. That's where we haven't found real traction outside of, say crypto, what we describe as, tokenized tokens and trading, right? And we saw some forays into that. We still see into art and on-chain assets, like putting art on chain. and I'm a big proponent. I love, Bitcoin, Bitcoin NFTs, ordinals. I love, I love art, and so it's cool to see. But we haven't got past a lot of things like payments, right? I think payments is a massive next step in evolution of where this technology can be transformative, and payments is a way bigger pie than what we have today, right? So we need to think about what are we doing to grow and introduce a better technology base for an industry or a use case that we can actually create value in. So, payments is a big one, and we have things like real world assets or tokenization, which will be slower, I think. I know some folks are really bullish on RWA and, tokenization of assets, but that is a slow process as it stands anyway, right? Like, I mean, I get it. There's a fast lane to throwing stuff on chain. But creating a liquid market for those things is going to be much harder, and regulation and incumbents in this space, they're not going to want to put their assets on chain very, very quickly, right?
Yeah.
So I think anyway, to answer your question on education, yeah, there's an existing barrier to a lot of folks who are just trying to get into the space. It's hard, it's confusing, and then there's a lot of bad actors in this space who will happily trick you and take what your assets, and one of those stories can turn somebody off, and one of those experiences for sure turn somebody off from being in this space.
So it's incredible. Tell me if you agree with this, but like, I would say that the I don't know what you want to call them, the bad actors in the crypto space are some of the most talented and sophisticated people in the ecosystem, And
I mean, yeah, to some degree. I mean, but they exist everywhere, right? You know what I mean? Like, you'd be surprised. Even in Singapore, we're in Singapore. There's a really a lot, maybe I shouldn't say, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens everywhere in the world where fraud and this type of stuff is really perpetrated quite sophisticatedly, right?
Yeah.
You look at Southeast Asia is actually one of the largest places in the world where you see high fraud rates. So yeah, they do, and anyone who's working in that space, they find the gaps, right?
Yeah.
And they think a bit different because they're seeing a point of view that you don't see.
Yeah.
And I like the piece around like social engineering, the way that they get into have a playbook or a pattern that they execute is quite sophisticated. But they're seeing it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And that's why I have some friends who are good white hat hackers, and just hanging out with them, they can see what those folks see.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, actually it's pretty obvious. Like, you should do this thing. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I do think, regardless of how sophisticated or whatnot, like, it is just confusing, right? Like, when you have to sign a transaction and going on chain can be scary. You have to sign a transaction, and you're like, and especially on different chains, it's different. So you might have spent all your time learning ETH, and then you go to Solana, and it's different wallet, different transaction. You try to check the blockchain explorer, which you thought was EVM. Check the Ethereum. I know how to check it.
Yeah.
You go on SoulScan, and you're like, wait, what is this?
Yeah.
It's completely different infrastructure, and people expect you to know it, right? And you kind of feel like an idiot if you don't, right? And that's not a good feeling to have. And so that's a piece of what we need to just do a little bit better at. Again, I think the UI UX of overall is not where we need it to be, but it's improving. And I think what you mentioned, just getting in front of people, in real life, being open and exploring and sharing, the experiences, the positive experiences that you've had, transacting with this technology, whether you've made gains or not, whether you've learned, right? It's really something that's compelling for people. So I think overall, education is a fundamental need and will always be there, but we still need to do a bit better at making it an approachable technology, an approachable place, and a safer place for people to transact.
Yeah, I love that. Matthew, what else can we talk about, man? You've been great.
We can talk about everything, man.
Yeah.
So back to the crypto events, right? That's the point on education. It's like the feeling that people get at these events. I know I used to go to a lot of ad tech conferences. I went to marketing conferences, all types. And, they're not as fun and as cool as the crypto conference. Yeah, right? Crypto events. And it's like, how do we make that more accessible, right? Accessible to people where it's not feeling like an insider's club, like and specifically a boys club too.
Yes.
And those are things that I'm really thinking more about, because if I'm going to continue to be in this industry and in this job, we need to continue to progress. And I can't say that I've solved these problems, but some of the baseline things around communication and trying to get, I think we're at a point, at least at OKX and in my career, that we're quite good at, the fundamental communications of this technology and our products and why you should use them. The next piece is how do you create accessibility, right? And really thinking about that a lot recently. And I do think the first piece is, getting more and more advocacy, organic advocacy, by bringing people on who are passionate about it, right? About this space, and just supporting them, because there's so many passionate people in this space. They might not have a lot of followers, they might not be KOLs or influencers, but you find them on Twitter or you find them at a conference, you're like, dude, this person is awesome, right? I'm like, how do I get that person a platform? Right?
How do you empower these champions?
And it's as simple as that, I think, in broad terms, right? And then it's a question of how, right? And that's where there are strategies and such that we're building and I'm investing in to try to create that layer of advocacy, which brings more people in. And I think we're not there yet, but I think this is really where we need to spend time. So we're going to start with events, and there's some other sort of digital experiences and community programs that we'll be working on and rolling out at OKX. That will be pretty good experiments to try to increase that sort of overall piece of the pie.
Yeah, tell us what is it like? I mean, OKX. I think OKX is a super interesting company, and I've had the opportunity to see it evolve a bit over time. I mean, OKX is like it's quite, I guess relative to this, it's quite mature for the space at this point. But it's definitely had an evolution over the last 5 years since I've been in crypto, where I feel like, and maybe in no small part due to your contribution, sir, but I feel like OKX has done a really great job of sort of defining their brand and clarifying and just creating this really nice, clean brand. And I mean, OKX obviously, for those that may not know, very, very large exchange. If I think Binance is still very much the biggest, and then is OKX three? What?
It depends. I mean, depending on the markets where.
But
top
it's up
two,
there. You know what I mean? Yeah, definitely.
That's our exchange business. We also we consider ourselves a Web3 technology company, right? We have our exchange, which has been operating for more than, call it 12, 13 years in this space. And so we're quite mature. We've built our exchange and trading engine from scratch and iterated on that for years and years. And so it's an incredibly strong venue for liquidity and trading. And so that's our centralized exchange. And part of that is we're also, really thinking about how do we get more, evolve this space and mature as a company. And, we've unfolded a corporate strategy to, go into the onshore markets and have acquired a number of licenses. We just recently announced our MiCA license to open operations to 28 countries in Europe and the EEA. We have a license in Singapore, Australia, Brazil, Turkey, and we're going to continue to bring crypto to the masses as best we can, and work in a compliant and regulatory manner to do that. And then we have our Web3 business and our wallet and our decentralized exchange, and we provide infrastructure, self-custody wallet and DEX aggregator that aggregates liquidity. Self-custody wallet puts the crypto and the keys in your hands and allows you to operate on chain as an individual and empowers you to do so. I think from a product standpoint, I've worked in a lot of companies. The problem is not a product problem. We have great products. In fact, they're getting better every single day. They get better, and they're as competitive as any exchange or Web3 product wallet that you're going to see. You're going to get a great experience on OKX. From a brand and a communication standpoint, we've heavily invested in OKX brand over the past 3 years, and working with our brand partners like McLaren and Man City, helping to tell that OKX story at the brand level. Has been really a huge investment, and something that we believe has really not only paid off, but helped to bring a whole new sort of view of who we are as a company. And that's really the end, sort of our end goal is, as we grow and continue to support this technology, we consider ourselves a design and engineering company. The design of our brand, the design of our products, that's what's going to really be what stands out. And we're really, really thoughtful about, how we're seen, what we do. I can say really, wholeheartedly that, as an industry player, we're quite a good actor. Our intentions are always quite good. That we're always thinking about how do we improve our products? How do we stop fraud? How do we make our products safer, the environment safer, the market safer? right? Because ultimately we just believe in this technology and we want to see it grow. And so the brand has been a great investment. I think we've done a great job there, and under the leadership of Hyder and our CMO. And now the next frontier is really, really creating that accessibility, right? Creating the advocacy layer, helping people understand and be comfortable to transact on chain and come to the exchange where it's, where they can use it. And we're going to continue to push there. There's a lot coming up in the next few months and year plus here for OKX that I think we're going to continue to shine even brighter than we have. And I'm pretty excited about that. And for me as a marketer, it's just more opportunities to tell stories. And that's something that I just love doing. So yeah, at OKX, it's a good combination.
Awesome, man. I love it. Are you open to people reaching out to you if they, if someone sees this and says, "Oh, I've got a great idea. I want to collaborate with Matthew on something"?
Of course. Yeah. You
Yeah.
can find me on Twitter. My handle's _it's Matt. We can probably tag it or leave it here.
Yeah, we will.
I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, I'm always open to connect and chat.
Love it.
If you're building something, if you're a developer, love to see what you're developing. We have great developer tools available to you at OKX under our OKX developer brand. We have tons of different types of projects that we work with in our ecosystem. If you're building a project, talk to us. Really, we are always open to collaborate. And for me, I just love meeting people, hearing the story, and thinking and trying to understand more about what you're building. So it always makes me excited to meet new people.
Love it, Matt. This has been really great, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course, Lawrence. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. See you next time.